that drum set that you have there, I don't give that 3 years. Well, Caitlin Ramsey came to me and said, I think we need to replace the drum set. So we've got a few added expenses in equipment, which, but we've also got some reductions. Like in phys ed, that's down over $1,000 because our equipment room for the winter fitness unit is looking like it's in pretty good shape. So instead of in the $2,000 range, that's in the $1,000 range. Amanda Kozaka, our new librarian, she is working very hard to update our collection, and she's also working to add more male-friendly readings, different kinds of opportunities for boys to come to the library and be engaged with text. So that library books and periodicals account is up $1,000. We're saving a couple thousand on printing costs. That's because we just said for our 5th and 6th grade agenda planners, we don't need it to have a CAPE logo, we don't need it to have this and that, it doesn't need to have a handbook in it, just give us something a kid can write in. So we've saved quite a bit in that. And then also you might notice in the instructional technology, you'll see something that says it's an increase of $10,000, and actually that's another rearrangement of the furniture. It used to be under a line for GT because we anticipated possible expenses for students maybe getting involved with some Johns Hopkins work, and that didn't materialize, which is fine. So we've been using that money for instructional technology to provide teachers with site licenses for tools such as ExploreLearning.com, Gizmos, Discovery Education, BrainPop, and other things. So I think that you can see the numbers for the classroom at the bottom, the enrollment and staffing projections for next year.
Questions for Steve?
Steve, I'm kind of surprised, maybe it's because of the outside funding we got to, I can't remember what it's called, but I remember contributing to it, that books and periodicals, we're only spending $14,000, I think, which is a small increase of $6,000. And I remember in going back to 9-10, we spent $38,000. Do you feel comfortable that we are spending enough on updating our books and periodicals?
Good question. Thanks for asking that. So we had the Text We Can, where the parents raised. They had a pretty good deal for us. If they would raise $60,000 in the community, the school budget would match that. Because as you might recall, there was the youngest book that I had in the collection from 5 through 8 was 12 years old, and the oldest was 26 or 27. So, we were studying about how you can use electricity for all kinds of modern marvels. We have gone through almost all of our textbooks, and those have been updated. The only section that has not been done is social studies, because they are the last group in the pipeline for the curriculum management plan. I'm going to be purchasing a resource out of funds that I have this year. There's Pauline, it's something like, I don't know, $13,100 left over in the Text We Can fund that we anticipated using for this. And I'll combine some of the money that's left in that account this year to purchase the textbooks for the 8th grade for next year. So I have money for that I can use this year to get those textbooks for next year.
I see. So what you're saying is, that even though we're only increasing about 6, because excuse me, we're actually increasing enough using the leftover money from Text We Can to. Will that take care of the social studies update?
Leftover money that'll take care of half the social studies update. The other half, the money from this year will take care of half. The other money will take care of the other half.
So by the end of next year, between private sources and in this budget, we will finally have updated the middle school textbooks.
And we'll be in year 2 of 6-year site licenses for the social studies and the world language pieces. So, in 4 years, we'll have to revisit that.
That's quite an achievement in the last couple of years that we've been able to do. Thank you.
Thanks. I think Janice Zimmerman and other folks were tired of hearing me complain about it.
Well, I contributed, so it worked.
Okay.
Any other questions for Steve? Well, Steve, on the what we would call professional development, there's a total middle school improvement of instruction, there's a staff development component, and then there's a student assessment.
Yes.
Which amount would be for if a teacher wanted to take a professional development class? Is that mainly the staff development?
Yes, so the staff development piece would be used, I use most of that during the school year as teachers are saying, I'd like the opportunity, there's something that they didn't plan for that becomes available. For instance, there's a conference on response to intervention in Boston. So I'm going to use those funds to pay for that. Typically, the student assessment and curriculum money, that's for, I try to reserve that mostly for summer curriculum work where teachers have the time to sit down in several different groupings and really dive into a subject and tear it apart.
Okay, so both of those amounts are available for teachers for professional development?
Yes, and they put out proposals to the office for that, and I work with the staff to figure out how we're going to cover those costs.
Thank you.
Okay, for the high school budget, I also want to start off by just sort of acknowledging and thanking the board for support in a few key ways. And one of the things that some of the board members who were part of the board last year might remember is a significant discussion about cumulative intervention, and that led to the hiring of an academic skills coach, who is Tom Cohan. Some of you may know Tom. I think it has been marvelously successful for kids. The poster child for that is a student who's now a junior boy, who has traditionally struggled with organizational skills, keeping on top of things. Very nice young man, worked hard, and a bright kid. At the beginning of this year, we assigned him through the intervention team to Tom Cohan, and for the first time in his high school career, he made the honor roll at the end of the first quarter, which was absolutely huge. We then had a learning curve because he came and said, I love working with Tom Cohan, but I'd love a little more freedom as well since I've made the honor roll. Can I have my freeze? So we cut him loose cold turkey at his request, and he dipped a little bit, and he is now back, and gladly sort of back on the course. He's I think, the poster child. There are many success stories that Tom has had, and we've been really prioritizing Tom's work with younger students in particular. That student happened to be a junior, but he's been working extensively with 9th and 10th graders and really successfully. The second thing is to mention the board's continued support for the Achievement Center and the work that goes on in the Achievement Center. This past year, heading into the year, without any budgetary increase at all, with some creative look at our schedules, the math department, math teachers, and the Achievement Center staff were able to figure out a way to get a math teacher in the Achievement Center every single period. Up until then, it had been Elaine Brownell who was in there for one period. We tried to be strategic about the period when we assigned her to the Achievement Center, but this year, for the first time, we have a math teacher in the Achievement Center every period, so that students were really, and the math teachers are really using it well, and the students are really benefiting from it, I think. The other thing that I would mention is the continued support for the reading position in the high school. Angela Shapani did a presentation a couple months ago, and I certainly read that the board was very supportive of that work. I happened to be in an English classroom, 9th grade English classroom the other day, observing Erica Block, who's one of our new English teachers, and she was introducing her students to an essay that they were having to write. But first they had to sort of take some notes from a reading. And one of the students who's actually in Angela's class, or was in Angela's class first semester, sort of said, why don't we use soapstone? The teacher had never heard of soapstone, but it's a technique that had been developed by some of the reader, or Matt might have heard of it, because sometimes it's used in some AP classes. It's a College Board developed strategy. It's an acronym. I'm not going to tell you what it's all about. These guys probably could, but it's a way to sort of systematically look at some reading in some really intensive ways. And it was just fascinating. This student, just having internalized what Angela had taught her, sort of talked the rest of the class and the teacher through this. It was really nice to see the way Students are internalizing some of that work. So those are some of the highlights. I will say that in a nutshell, my budget is really simple. For the past few years, we have held off on some text and equipment increases, and we have been able to get away with that, and still what we need to do what we need to do. But we've had some equipment damage just in the normal course of events, and we have some things that we need to replace, and we have some textbooks that have gotten pretty old, not quite as old as the one Steve was talking about in the high school. But we've got a few that are close. So this year, what basically the budget represents is a trade-off, a reduction in supplies and software and some other accounts, and to allow us for this year to catch up on some of the text and equipment purchases that we really need to do to just replace things, essentially. The trade-off is masked a little bit because it looks like in the budget line of supplies that it's a significant increase, but again, that's because the ARRA money, we're actually using less money for supplies next year we're projecting than we did this year. So that is kind of lost a little bit in the lines because of the ARRA money. But our bottom line is non-salary, as Ken mentioned. Our non-salary lines, all totaled last year, were $362,894 for the high school. And next year, what I'm proposing for the high school is $362,894. That's the high school budget.
Questions for Jeff?
I have a question, Jeff.